Before we start this video, I'd like to direct your attention to eSIMs for Gaza, where you can buy data for Palestinians in Gaza affected by Israeli orchestrated power outages. The directions are on their site, but basically you just need to download an eSIM carrier, which they list for you, and then buy the amount of data you want to give. I donated 10 gigabytes for around 30 USD, and then you email the QR code to them, and they match it with someone in need, and voila, it's that easy. If you're able to donate and spare some extra cash, it would mean the world for them. So thanks, and now on to the video.
As Katy Perry once said, if you stand for nothing, you fall for everything. Well, actually that quote is attributed to Alexander Hamilton, but the sentiment still rings true centuries later. If you don't have any political morals or grounding, then you're bound to be easily swayed or duped, or even worse, remain neutral in a time of crisis. In this case, currently in the year 2024, the crisis at hand is the genocide in Gaza against the Palestinian people at the hands of the IDF or Israeli military. This isn't the first time this has happened, however, and actually the Israel-Palestine conflict has been going on since the first Nakba in 1948, when almost 1 million Palestinian Arabs were displaced and made refugees on their own homeland along the Gaza Strip to make way for the new Israeli nation-state, which would later turn into the present-day foothold for the US and other Western European powers in the Middle East. And conveniently, this coincided within years of Egypt gaining control of the Suez Canal in 1956 after almost a century of British and French control. Today, the genocide in Gaza is said to be happening in order to make way for a new canal that would rival the Suez and be controlled by Israel and their allies, in order to facilitate faster and cheaper trade and, of course, line their pockets. Maintaining the State of Israel would also mean the continuation of securing U.S. military, economic, and political interests in an area that is, in general, very hostile to the U.S. and, to be honest, understandably so. But political and monetary interest in building this new canal is not the only reason behind the genocide. It is also an example of ethnic cleansing. We cannot ignore the fact that Israeli Jews believe that they are above Arab and Muslim Palestinians because they align themselves with whiteness. They and others in the Jewish diaspora have reveled in their white adjacentness, even showing off their blonde hair and blue eyes juxtaposed to those dirty brown Arabs. This is very much a religious and racial conflict as much as a capitalist one, as settler colonialism and imperialism is usually motivated by many different factors, not just monetary gain, but an actual ideology that the conqueror is innately better than the conquered. Graves are being dug up, children are being shot at, people are being deprived of food and basic humanity, all to erase the Palestinian people who the IDF and the US government see as less than. The goal is to erase any memory of them and their history, so it's as if they never existed. And the mainstream news narrative is that the US and Israel are just trying to stop Hamas, a resistance group which they believe justifies bombing hospitals, dressing up as medical staff to infiltrate a hospital, and killing thousands and thousands of children and babies. Not to mention the kidnapping of children from their murdered parents. It has been documented that IDF soldiers are kidnapping Palestinian babies and children and ripping them away from their own families. And now, the young adults and children growing up under this regime of terror aren't only going to be traumatized for the rest of their lives, some are also going to become radicalized and be deemed terrorists by the US and Israel, but who will in reality join the resistance force against one of the biggest militaries in the world, if not the biggest. Anti-Semitism is very real, but contrary to popular belief, being pro-Palestine doesn't mean you hate Jewish people. In fact, many Jewish people in the diaspora are calling for a ceasefire and end of the violence and are pro-Palestine because never again means never again. Why would children of Holocaust victims want another group of people to face what their elders faced? Yet, some people have chosen to become the oppressors, whether in or out of the diaspora, and have said they stand with the State of Israel and want to continue the genocide against the Palestinian civilians and a terrorist group that frankly only exists because of how shittily their people have been treated by those in power. If your community was suddenly uplifted and told they were second-class citizens, wouldn't you fight back? If the Hunger Games were real, Katniss would be labeled a terrorist, not a freedom fighter. Ever since the first Nakba, the indigenous Palestinians have been pushed further and further from their homeland, carpet-bombed, subjected to chemical weapons, and other torture that seems unendurable, and yet they persist. And one day Palestine will be free. But for now we fight and resist in the small ways only we as individuals under an imperialist and growing fascist regime can, and we will never look away. But it seems as though those in power and those with great influence want you to forget. Forget that the US is subsidizing the Israeli healthcare and military with US tax money. Forget that various companies like McDonald's and Burger King give aid to the IDF. And forget that even higher learning institutions like Rutgers University give money to Israel. And even worse, some people with extreme wealth and influence and popularity are doing their best to not say anything at all.
So as I was editing this, I thought I'd just put a short disclaimer here before we get too deep into this whole thing. Firstly, I just want to say that I'm not trying to condemn people who like these celebrities' art or performances. I too partake in society and listen to music and consume media. But rather, the point of the discussion here is to highlight hypocrisy and even the soullessness of the rich and famous who continue to push this narrative that they're people too, and that they also care about the world and their fans, us commoners. But then when it's time to show up, they don't. And though I know that many just don't care if X person says this or Y person does that, or say, what'll they change? But if a celebrity really is a person too, if, they say they're human, then where's their humanity? Secondly, they are not the victims here, and whether we're bad people or good people for liking X, Y, or Z's music or movies isn't what's at stake here either. But rather, what is important is that the Palestinian people are being killed en masse, and it seems as though those with the biggest platforms who hoard obscene amounts of wealth and influence don't care. I think a lot about how capitalism alienates us from one another and repackaging self-care with selfishness, and I can't think of a better example than what's happening right now. I know some people may think this is just a waste of time because it's not their job, but since when is it someone's job to care about their fellow humans? To end this, just remember the rich and famous aren't victims in this fight, and being bogged down with your own morality on whether to continue to consume their work is missing the point. The bigger picture is just this general lack of caring about holding others accountable, this apathy that we should just accept silence as the world burns. I just don't think that's right.
So with the state of the world as it is, you'd expect the quote-unquote liberal Hollywood machine to say something about it. You'd expect the artists that we all look up to, people who have millions upon millions of dollars, people who have huge platforms, who take brand deal after brand deal, or who have their own brands, to, do or at least say something. But there are some who say, why should they? We have political activists for that. We have grassroots politicians for that. Celebrities aren't elected officials. And in some ways, I understand that. I remember when that one teen beauty pageant contestant was being ripped to shreds for not giving a well-crafted answer to why some US school children couldn't point to it on a map. And in the end, it just shows how exploitative beauty pageants are, specifically teen ones. Like, this portion of the pageant is just there to set them up to fail, to show that they're quote-unquote airheads, and used to humiliate the young women who compete in them. And to demand that celebrities take a stand on every political issue that they might not be educated about feels like putting them on the stand, just waiting for them to fail so we can all laugh at them, and use their ineptitude as a way to cancel them or justify abuse they face, because celebrities, of course, are people too, and very public people at that. But it's different when celebrities declare themselves activists, because then we can more readily hold them accountable because they're outwardly trying to make a change. The hard part, though, when it comes to celebrity activism is making the gestures feel genuine, because a lot of the time it seems like whatever they do will never be good enough or come off as self-centered. Kim Kardashian has raised awareness and even has fought to get prisoners who were wrongly convicted off of death row, and is trying to pass the bar. But to many it comes off as if she's just doing it for herself, for her own vanity. People wonder how pure her intentions are when she's broadcasting her good deeds for all to see on her reality show. It's like high school students who do a summer in a nation in Africa with their church, where I guess they donate their time and work and even build stuff, but in the end they're just doing it to pad their resume and spread their religion. Does that invalidate the volunteering and help and impact that they had? Brad Pitt notoriously built housing after Katrina hit, only for those houses to be poorly built and homeowners locked into mortgages and stuck with shitty property. The plaintiffs ended up winning against Make It Right, Pitt's charity that built the houses, and the other celebrity-backed charity, Global Green, was going to pay $20.5 million to help repair the homes until it was discovered that they were actually still in the process of raising the money, leaving homeowners pessimistic once again. Note that it has been almost 18 years years since Katrina and almost 16 years since Pitt made that initial deposit. In many ways, celebrity activism falls flat because despite their impact, it doesn't feel like they really mean it, and honestly, in some cases like Pitt's, they don't mean it. But of course, that depends on the celebrity. Dolly Parton's Imagination Library is one of the reasons why she's so beloved. Some celebrities also donate their millions quietly to scholarship funds, like Beyonce and Jay-Z donated $2 million in scholarships for students attending HBCUs. Lastly, some celebrities even have their own foundations, like Miley Cyrus with her Happy Hippie Foundation, and Leonardo DiCaprio, who has his Leonardo DiCaprio Foundation that supports over 35 innovative conservation projects around the world that protect fragile ecosystems and key species. Even though it may come across as fake activism, celebrities using their influence and power as well as their money for good, whether quietly or not, is what is expected of you when you're in this social contract where the public gives you fame and riches. You then need to give back in some way, show you care, or at least perform as if you care. And most are up to this task and their good faith is recognized. And even if it's selfish, at least they're doing something, right? But honestly, in the case of Kim and the whole Kardashian clan, I'd rather them fade into obscurity. And to get really into it, I just wish the celebrity class didn't exist at all, but here we are. And though celebrity can sometimes be a form of abuse, especially if you're a child, teen, or young adult, once you become a full-fledged adult, most people expect you to be a good influence in the world. And I think that's fine and a good thing. We should expect those with money and power to not abuse those things. But when it comes to the genocide in Gaza, it seems as though most celebrities have remained silent or painfully apolitical. On the spectrum, there are those who are using their platform to voice their support for a continuation of the war, like Mayim Bialik and former IDF soldier Gal Gadot. Those in the middle who have done the bare minimum for a celebrity with millions of dollars in followers, like going to a fundraiser, signing the Artists for a Change letter, doing a both sides thing of wanting all children to be free and all people to know peace, etc. There are also those who have said nothing, and though may have attended again a single fundraiser or signed the Artists for a Change letter, which requires almost no actual sacrifice, haven't posted anything to their fans or followers letting them know where they stand on this deeply horrific thing that's happening. And then there are those who have called for a ceasefire and for their followers to do the same, those who have used their platform time and time again to educate people about the genocide of the Palestinians and demand justice and an end to Israel's crimes against humanity. Bella Hadid has been vocal for years about Palestine on her Instagram and even shares stories of her grandfather and father who survived the first Nakba and how her heart goes out to all of the children and families suffering in Gaza, reaching her millions of fans and disrupting the mainstream narrative that one can be neutral or apolitical when it comes to genocide. Melissa Barrera, the star of Scream 7, was fired in November of 2023 by Spyglass Entertainment, the production company, for her pro-Palestinian posts saying, "Spyglass's stance is unequivocally clear. We have zero tolerance for anti-Semitism or the incitement of hate in any form, including false references to genocide, ethnic cleansing, Holocaust distortion, or anything that flagrantly crosses the line into hate speech. So much for Hollywood being a liberal institution." Melissa has continued to get backlash for simply sharing links to donate to organizations that will help those in Gaza, such as the United Nations Relief and Agency for Palestine Refugees in the Near East. She not only lost her job, but Hollywood as an institution has deemed her a pariah. But her co-star Jenna Ortega left the production in solidarity with her. On October 21st of 2023, celebrities came together and signed a ceasefire letter to Biden. The list continues to grow and is updated daily, the last update being the 23rd of January, with more names being added each day. And just like that, co-stars Sarah Ramirez and Cynthia Nixon have both been vocal about the genocide in Gaza, but only Ramirez was kicked off the show, citing their pro-Palestinian views as to why. In the end, many celebrities, including Jane Fonda and Simon Helberg, have called for a ceasefire and have either encouraged their followers to do the same, sign the ceasefire letter to Biden, or both. As we've discussed, at an individual level, one reason celebrities decide not to use their wealth and influence to be political is because they feel like they can never win or be taken seriously, so they apathetically give up. But not everyone feels that way, and in the end, that's more of a subjective reason as to why famous people don't do or say anything too politically divisive. A more systemic reason, though, is because Hollywood as an institution is generally conservative and right-leaning, as well as intensely patriotic. Melissa Barrera's treatment was a reminder for all artists in Hollywood to remember their place and is being used as an example for those who step out of line. The institutions that award people like Taylor Swift at the Grammys or snub Greta Lee at the Oscars are invested in Israel and the US-backed occupation. Hollywood is a nationalistic institution, and you don't want to bite the hand that feeds you. Shout out to Annie Lennox for calling for a ceasefire at this year's Grammys. That's the least you can do in a room full of wealthy, rich celebrities who would still be rich beyond their wildest dreams even if they just shared one link to relief or one post about how Palestinians are struggling just to stay alive at the hands of Israel and the US. There's no incentive for these people to speak out, so we need to force them out of their comfortable silence. Dan and Phil, YouTubers, were able to raise $100,000 for Palestine. Imagine what Taylor Swift could do, or Selena Gomez. Heck, Selena Gomez at least signed the ceasefire letter. Swift hasn't. That's again one of the most basic things you can do that doesn't even require you to leave your own house. And if celebrities really are people too, don't they have political opinions? Don't they have a moral duty like the rest of us to speak out against injustice? You can't have it both ways. You can't say celebrities are people too, but then not act like a fellow human being. Sometimes I wonder if these celebrities even know what's going on because they probably don't even look at their own news feeds and have other people doing it for them. They're so far removed from the world in their gilded cages that maybe truly they don't even read or see what's happening in the world. Or maybe it's because their activism starts and ends with themselves. Not all celebrities are activists, and I guess in the end that's fine. Not all celebrities need to use their platform for good. Some even use them for bad. But in a world where our political institutions are failing us, it would make the world, at least for me, a little better knowing that those with great power and influence, those that we as the public are taught to look up to, bring into our home, don't remain apolitical in a time of genocide, especially when their own government funds it. If the rich and famous truly are human, it would be a no-brainer to speak up for their fellow man. But maybe I've just fooled myself all these years into thinking that the celebrity class has any consciousness at all. I think it's even harder to accept celebrities like Beyonce, Lady Gaga, and Taylor Swift staying silent on this matter, as they do seem to care about politics, urging people to vote and fight against bigotry and hate. I think maybe in their minds they just don't feel like they can make a difference. As Selena Gomez previously said at the end of last year, a post won't change the world. But why not at least give it a try? On the other hand, I get it. At this point, do we really want celebrities to do anything or say anything at this point? Because in the end, they'll just find some way to capitalize on the thing and incorporate it into their brand. But I'd rather someone incorporate being anti-genocide into their corporate ego than to just sit back and watch the world burn, but that's just me. But who knows, maybe those who haven't said anything really just don't care or actually side with the US government. We'll never know. We've seen what happened to the Dixie Chicks, to Barrera, to Ramirez, so I get that there's strong incentives not to be an activist, but it's hard to take that seriously when, again, two YouTubers that have recently just made a comeback after taking a break from the platform were able to raise $100,000 in relief. But in the end, like the letter Gomez and other celebrities signed, says, history is watching, and the Dixie Chicks, Barrera, and Ramirez all landed on the right side of it. The reason I'm making this video is because I don't want to look back on this time and say I did nothing, and I'm saddened by the realization that these artists we all hold so dear, who have so much money, power, and influence, are okay and comfortable with nothing. But I guess I shouldn't be surprised. I think in the end what infuriates me is that we'd all like to think that if we were them, we would do something. But now I'm not sure that we would. All I know is I, a nobody, don't want to fall into that apathetic mindset. And I'm really disheartened by the fact that so many celebrities take this route of either truly believing that they don't have any influence and yet see their makeup and albums sell out worldwide, or are just giving us these platitudes in silence because they're too cowardly to do anything that would require putting themselves out there and actually risking something. And though I agree that, again, celebrities aren't politicians, and who cares, they have no political power, whatever, I think just as a fellow human being, or just as fellow human beings, from person to person, human to human, we should be concerned that when a genocide is happening, they have nothing to say. So I end this video with the same quote: if you stand for nothing, you fall for everything. Thanks for watching.